Gun laws already enacted here in New York as we bring in Republican New York State Senator Greg Ball, along with Democratic State Senator Michael Gianaris. Good to see you guys. Thank you both for being with us. You said something. I'm going to ask you about what he said. This woman in Georgia, a guy breaks into her house with a crowbar, and she goes up into a crawl space in her attic, and with her two twins, the guy goes up there. She happened to hit him with 5 shots. That's all she had in the gun, 5. What if there were 2 guys? He walked out of that house. Andrew Cuomo, he has security. President Obama has security. Hollywood stars have security. Our money in our banks have security. How do you stop him?
It's all about finding the right balance, Sean. We already have a 10-bullet limit in
no, now it's 7. As of right now, it is 7.
And the idea is we want to make it as difficult as possible for people to walk into a movie theater or a school or whatever it is and do the maximum amount of damage.
The state address. I want everybody to watch this. Our founders, our framers, they never mentioned hunting. They never mentioned deer. They never mentioned any of these things. They talked about freedom and liberty over tyranny. Watch what Andrew Cuomo said.
Forget the extremists. It's simple. No one hunts with an assault rifle. No one needs 10 bullets to kill a deer. And too many innocent people have died already. End the madness now. Pass safe, reasonable gun control in the state of New York. Make this state safer. Save lives. Set an example for the rest of the nation. Let them look at New York and say, this is what you can do, and this is what you should do. This is New York, the progressive capital. You show them how we lead.
So what is your background in law enforcement?
I spent 34 years in law enforcement locally here on the San Francisco Peninsula. I did just about every job in law enforcement during those years. I started as a bottom police cadet and subsequently retired as chief of police of my organization.
Okay. We'll just keep going, yes. So what is your opinion on gun control?
I'm actually an advocate for gun control. I think gun control would be wonderful for this nation. I don't know if we can ever do it, but the statistics are overwhelming. The statistics in regards to how many homicides are committed by firearms, and the fact that firearms make committing a homicide so easy. The vast majority of homicides are committed by firearms. Wouldn't it be nice if we just get rid of them all?
Yeah.
What about?
Has there been any specific cases in length of your career that gun control would have positively or negatively affected the situation?
Well, the mere presence of guns, of course, causes problems. And many times over the year, I or other officers in my organization would come across firearms. Sometimes it's simple, just in a search of a car, or sometimes during the investigation of a crime. One story that always kind of rings true to me that I was involved with was one of the neighboring jurisdictions that just had an armed robbery, and as they put out a vehicle broadcast, that car was right in front of me. And I ended up chasing that car, and it ran from me, and it finally crashed into a tree. And the subject was armed with a firearm, and he jumped out of the car and actually charged towards my police car, yelling for me to shoot him, shoot him. And of course it was very dark, and I couldn't see what he had in his hands at that time. Fortunately, I did not have to shoot at him, and subsequently the gun was recovered inside the vehicle. But that was a little bit too close for me.
Wow. Awesome.
So, what is your stance on gun control in America, and why do you believe that?
My stance on gun control in America is that we need to have responsible, law-abiding citizens purchasing handguns, and I believe in the Second Amendment right that if you are a law-abiding citizen who does not have a criminal background and you are of legal age, you should be able to purchase, own, and enjoy handguns and long guns, whether it be for sport shooting or hunting.
Yeah. Do you think guns should be easier or harder to get today than they are to go?
I think that California is kind of sets the standard on most of the states in the United States, besides the District of Columbia. I believe California has some of the strictest gun laws out there, and I agree with what laws are in place currently. We do background checks on people to make sure that they don't have a felony background. I do think that one thing maybe probably should be added to background checks are people with mental health issues. That's been a problem. I think a lot of the mass shootings that we've seen that have caused a lot of people to be very negative towards guns have been put into the hands of people who were either not of age or were mentally ill. So I think that the way that California's gun laws are right now, which are very strict, are perfect. Maybe add, just like I said, add to background checks maybe mental health issues.
Yeah. Why did you want to take me to shooting range or to show me about guns?
Well, I think a lot of people are given a preconceived notion of what guns are, whether they're good or bad. A lot of times it's a negative perspective on guns from people, and I felt it would be a good idea for you to be able to go out and actually see guns, be able to handle one safely, be with somebody who is trained in gun safety, and also give you an opportunity to see that there is also a sports side of target shooting. And as you saw at the range, there were lots of people there with their weapons all safely firing. There was, everyone was very responsible, and I felt it was a good opportunity for you to actually get there for yourself to see what people talk about when they say, well, I use guns recreationally, I should say. So that's why I wanted to bring you.
Like that, right? Okay? And what you want to do is you're going to squeeze that trigger. If you pull the trigger, you're going to pull the gun up, fire up. Squeeze slowly the trigger. I would suggest if you're first firing it, pull this hammer back and just do the double action. Pull it back. Okay? Now you're in a position where this gun is very lethal. Go for that target. Shoot for that middle. Wow! But keep your hand in there. Trigger back. That center of that target. Wow, you're good. Down range. Pop it in. Load it up. Load it. Go for your guy roll. This is semi-automatic. Fire. Fire. Go for that center target.
Should I try and hold it down when I fire?
Squeeze it really soft. Pull it. Pull up on the gun and this is target. So, yeah, just keep your arm straight, slowly. Here, I have your tongue here. Target. Go for that center. Don't pull hard on it. Just real slow. Great. That's awesome. Yes. But bullseye shooting. Very good shooting. Better than I can do it. Okay. So what's happened is that when the gun empties, it'll do this. Let's put it on here.
What is your stance on gun control in America, and why do you believe that?
So my position on gun control is a little bit vague because I feel like, given the fact that it's sort of a state issue and a federal issue, that it's a much more complicated issue than we all realize. Having seen you working on this and having you talk to some of the police officers and their very genuine fear of being in a situation where a gun's pulled on them, really opened my eyes to the fact that the guns should really be under some stricter controls. At the same time, we do have the Bill of Rights, and there's the guarantee in there to bear arms, and I'm extremely respectful of the Constitution of the United States and think that that would be a horrible thing if we tried to overturn any of that document.
Do you think guns should be easier or harder to get today than they already are?
So my thought is harder. I think in having conversations and sort of going through this process that the guns end up oftentimes in the hands of the people we least want to have those guns. And I think that there needs to be some more aggressive guidelines for background checks and to make sure that they don't get into the hands of the mentally ill. So I think we have to tighten everything up before we can go ahead and really put in place some programs that are going to go ahead and keep everyone safe.
Based on statistics you've seen and heard on the news, do you think we should make our gun laws more like other countries?
Again, it goes back to sort of the state versus federal situation. I think that the right to bear arms is part of this country's heritage and it shouldn't be messed with. I think, though, that on a state-by-state basis, or maybe the right to bear arms needs to be narrowed a little bit or more aggressively checked upon. Because right now what we have is a situation that doesn't seem to have a good solution in the near future.
How long is your career in law enforcement?
28 years.
What's your stance on gun control? Why do you believe that?
My stance on gun control. As mentioned before, it's a complicated question and probably a more complicated answer, but my take on gun control is, one is we should strictly advocate for extensive backgrounds, and we really should look into the backgrounds and the perspectives on the people who want to get guns. I don't want to take guns away from people, but I think there needs to be a strong background and vetting period. But on the other side of that, what we see in law enforcement on the streets, as far as who is using guns and who are committing the crimes, they're normally not the people that comply with the gun control laws, and so we see guns on the streets being used by folks that are either stealing the guns or they're buying them on the streets, and the reality is there are just too many guns on the streets. And so I think there's kind of a different path where I don't think gun control, personally in my opinion, in itself is going to have a significant influence on what happens in the streets.
Do you think guns should be easier or harder to get today than they are here?
I think they should be harder to get because I go back to the previous question where I think there should be very high standards on who gets them and who doesn't. But again, the reality is that there are so many guns on the streets. My sense is that they're easier to get now than they've ever been.
Are there any specific incidents in your police career where better gun control would possibly change the situation?
That's a great question. I've seen a lot of gun violence in my career, and we have traced guns guns that we have found that have been used in crimes. And some guns have been stolen from homes that were used in crimes, and I suppose you could make the correlation where if they were never given to people in the first place, and they never would have been stolen and used on the streets. And so, but more often than not, gun violence is done by people, again, that are not registered gun owners and have come across guns in a manner that's not prescribed in these gun laws. So, yeah, I suppose, the overreaching theory would be less people have guns, less opportunity for people to get hurt with the guns.